Caitlin gave my seat beside my husband's photo to her mother and told me to sit by the coffee urn. My son heard every word and looked away. I folded the chair card, stayed quiet, and watched the hall manager walk in with a yellow receipt clipped to his clipboard. If you have ever been made small by people you helped, stay with me. My name is Evelyn Mercer. I am 69 years old, and I live in Mason City, Iowa. I spent 31 years as a payroll clerk, and for a good part of that time, I served as treasurer for the VFW Auxiliary, back when my Frank was still alive and could fill a room just by laughing near the coffee pot. Frank had been gone almost 3 years. The Veterans Hall still smelled the same: old wood, hot coffee, floor wax, and the faint smoke trapped in the walls from years before the rules changed. He had played cards in the back room every Thursday, repainted the entryway one spring, and carried folding chairs for widows long after his knees started giving him trouble. The memorial supper was supposed to be simple: ham dinner, coffee service, a few old friends, some family, and a short toast beneath the framed service photos near the stage. I paid the deposit myself because I wanted it done right, and because Frank had loved that hall more than any fancy banquet room in town. When Darren and Caitlin offered to help, I let myself believe it was kindness. Darren said, "Mom, you should not have to handle all this alone." Caitlin nodded beside him and touched my arm in that soft way people use when they want to sound caring. She said she could handle flowers, programs, and little table touches. I wanted to give her room to be part of the family, not just married into it. A mother gets tired of guarding herself inside her own bloodline. The first sign came with the flowers. I had ordered white carnations with blue ribbons because Frank used to say red roses looked like they belonged in a hotel lobby. Caitlin changed them to burgundy roses and gold bows without asking me. When I noticed the invoice on my kitchen counter, she waved it off. "White looked a little funeral home, Evelyn," she said. "Trust me, Marlene knows what looks classy." Marlene was her mother. She lived down in Clear Lake and had met Frank maybe 4 times while he was alive. Still, Caitlin pulled her into every decision, as if Frank's memory needed outside supervision. The second sign came with the program draft. I was at my kitchen table with a mug of coffee cooling beside the utility bill when Darren dropped off a printed copy. The porch light was still on from the night before, and a bank envelope from the hall sat unopened near the napkin holder. I read the front page twice. Marlene Voss was listed near the top as family hostess. Caitlin and Darren were under special arrangements. My name had been pushed to the bottom in small print beside the words, "Special thanks to Evelyn Mercer." I tapped the paper and asked Darren why my name had moved. He rubbed the back of his neck the way he did as a boy when he had broken something and hoped I would not notice. "Caitlin just wants it to look nice, Mom," he said. "She says you paid for it, sure, but she is doing most of the work. Paid for it, sure." He said it like money was a side note, like Frank's name, and my years at that hall were background noise. Sometimes people do not ask for permission because they have already decided you stop mattering. I should have opened the bank envelope right then. Instead, I laid the program under the sugar bowl and told myself not to start trouble before Frank's supper. Have you ever noticed one small detail that made the whole story feel wrong, but you still hoped you were mistaken? By the time I arrived at the Veterans Hall that Saturday, Caitlin had already taken over the room. She stood near the head table in a cream sweater and pearls, pointing at centerpieces, directing cousins, and telling one of Frank's old post friends where to place the guest book. Marlene sat in my chair with her purse tucked at her feet, nodding like she was receiving guests in her own parlor. I walked toward the kitchen door because I needed 1 minute where nobody could see my face. That was when I noticed a fresh seating chart taped beside the service window. My name was no longer at the head table. It had been moved to the far side of the room, near coffee, service, and extra napkins. In the square where Evelyn Mercer should have been, Caitlin had written Marlene Voss in thick black marker. The ink was still shiny in places, too dark and too certain. My own name had been squeezed near the bottom, beside the words, coffee service, as if I were part of the equipment. I stood there with my purse strap pressed into my palm while Caitlin's voice floated over the room. She told Frank's cousin Linda to move a table closer to the wall because Marlene needed a clearer path to greet people. Then she turned to one of the old VFW men near the flag case and said, "My mother is better at greeting people. Evelyn gets tired with crowds." Ray Coster heard that. So did Linda. Both of them looked toward me, then looked away because neither one knew what to do with the embarrassment of it. Darren came up beside me, low and nervous. "Let's not make a scene, Mom," he said, still not looking at the seating chart. That landed harder than Caitlin's insult. A scene meant I would be the problem. Not the woman who moved my name, not the son who let her do it, but me if I dared to object in the room where my husband's photograph sat under a small lamp. Caitlin swept past us with programs tucked under one arm. She did not slow down. "Evelyn, you are fine by the coffee," she said. "It is easier if someone steady handles the front tonight. Someone steady." She meant her mother. Marlene sat beside Frank's picture with both hands folded over her purse. She wore a navy dress and a pearl pin, smiling at people who came close enough to look confused. Every time someone glanced toward me, Caitlin stepped in and guided their attention back to Marlene. I did not raise my voice. I did not walk to the head table and pull out the chair. I just watched the room, the way Frank used to watch a storm building over the cornfields, quiet because naming it would not stop it. After a few minutes, I went into the hallway outside the hall office. The light there was yellow and tired, buzzing over a row of metal folding chairs. From the main room came laughter, silverware, coffee pouring, all those small sounds people make while pretending not to notice something uncomfortable. I sat down with the folded chair card in my lap. The crease ran straight through my name. I pressed my thumb over it until the paper warmed under my skin. Through the doorway, I could see Frank's photograph. He was smiling in that old 4th of July picture, one hand on a folding chair, his VFW cap tipped back. If he had seen another woman sitting in his widow's chair while I sat in the hall, he would have stood so fast the table would have rattled. Ray stepped out of the office with his clipboard against his chest. He was a square-built man in his 70s, with glasses that always slid halfway down his nose. He stopped when he saw the card in my lap. "Evelyn, why are you out here?" he asked. "You are supposed to be at the head table." I gave him a small smile because old habits do not fall away all at once. Apparently there was a change. Ray frowned and flipped through the papers on his clipboard. The yellow carbon copy was clipped right on top, bright as a warning under the hallway light. He turned it toward me and tapped the first line. "It says right here, paid by Evelyn Mercer." My eyes moved down the receipt. Frank Mercer Memorial Supper. Hall deposit received, coffee service included. Head table seat 1. Sponsor and widow. Under hall account, my name sat in Ray's blocky handwriting. I had seen receipts like that for years as treasurer. Plain paper, clear numbers, no feelings. That was the comfort of it. Caitlin could soften her voice, Darren could look away, and Marlene could sit upright beside Frank's photograph. But that yellow sheet did not know how to flatter anyone. Ray lowered his voice. "Who changed the seating chart?" I looked back toward the main room. Caitlin was laughing near the guest book, one hand resting on Marlene's shoulder like she was presenting her to the family. She still thought I had accepted the place she made for me. I asked Ray if the original chart was still in the office. "It should be in the booking binder," he said. "Nadine helped file it when you brought the deposit in." Nadine Bell had been in the auxiliary with me for years. She knew Frank, knew me, and knew exactly how carefully I handled hall paperwork. Ray reached for the office phone, then paused when we saw Nadine herself coming down the hall with her coat still over one arm. She looked from my face to the chair card in my lap. Evelyn, what happened? Ray held up the yellow receipt, and I unfolded the program from my purse. Together, the three of us stepped into the small office that smelled of paper, coffee, and old radiator heat. Ray opened the gray metal filing cabinet and pulled out the booking binder for that month. Inside the main room, Caitlin's voice rose near the microphone, cheerful and sure of herself. In the office, Ray turned the binder toward us and slid one finger under a plastic sleeve marked Mercer Supper. The change chair was only the first lie. Ray slid the plastic sleeve out and laid it flat on the desk. The original seating chart was there, clean and simple, with my handwriting in the corner from the day I brought in the deposit. At the head table, seat 1 was marked Widow's Chair, Evelyn Mercer. Nadine let out a slow breath through her nose. Then Ray placed Caitlin's revised chart beside it. On that one, my name had been moved beside coffee service, and Marlene Voss had been written across seat 1, with hostess printed underneath in heavy black marker. There it was, not a mistake, not a misunderstanding. Caitlin had used my hall account, my payment, and Frank's good name at that place to build a little throne for her mother. The part that hurt most was not that Caitlin wanted her mother noticed. It was that she believed the easiest way to lift Marlene up was to push me out of the chair Frank would have saved for me with his own hands. Before Ray could close the binder, Caitlin appeared in the office doorway. Her smile was soft, but her eyes went straight to the papers. Evelyn, there you are, she said. We were getting worried. You seemed overwhelmed, and we were only trying to take some pressure off you. Nadine's mouth tightened, but she stayed quiet. Ray looked down at the charts, then back at me. I picked up my folded chair card from the desk. My hands were steady now. Ray, would you bring both charts and the receipt to the head table, please? Caitlin's smile thinned. There is no need to bother everyone with paperwork. I walked past her without answering. The main hall was warm and loud, full of coffee, ham dinners, old cologne, and the scrape of chairs on tile. Frank's photograph sat under the little lamp at the head table, and Marlene was still seated beside it, greeting people like she had been born into that place. Caitlin hurried around me and reached the microphone first. She tapped it with one finger and laughed when it squeaked. Everyone, she said, if I could have your attention before we eat, I want to thank the woman who really made tonight possible. Marlene lifted her chin. Darren stood near the end of the table, pale around the mouth, one hand in his pocket. He looked at me, then away, and for once, I did not help him escape the moment. Ray stepped beside Caitlin before she could say another word. He cleared his throat and held up the yellow receipt on his clipboard. Before the toast, I need the event sponsor to sign the final copy for the hall records. Caitlin reached for the pen. Ray did not hand it to her. Mrs. Evelyn Mercer, he said, would you come here, please? The room settled so fast I could hear the coffee urn click behind me. Ray placed the yellow carbon copy beside Frank's framed photograph. The stamp across the top said PAD, and underneath it, in plain office print, were the words paid by Evelyn Mercer. Caitlin gave a small laugh that fooled nobody. This is just a family misunderstanding, Ray. I handled the planning because Evelyn was tired. We were helping. Ray set the receipt down and opened the original seating chart. Nadine stepped forward with the revised one. She had known most of those people for years, and when she spoke, her voice carried without the microphone. This is the chart filed with Evelyn's deposit, she said. Widow's Chair, Evelyn Mercer. This second chart is the one submitted later, with Marlene Voss written in Evelyn's place. Caitlin's cheeks turned red. Marlene's hands froze on her purse. Darren finally looked at me, really looked, and the shame on his face was almost harder to see than his silence had been. I touched the back of the chair beside Frank's picture and kept my voice level. You may move a chair, Caitlin, But you do not get to move a widow out of her husband's memorial. No one clapped. It was not that kind of moment. The room simply went still, and Caitlin lost the power she had been borrowing from everyone else's politeness. Marlene stood first. She picked up her purse and moved to the second table with her eyes lowered. I sat down beside Frank's photograph, my chair card near my plate, its crease still visible. Ray leaned close and spoke softly enough that only the nearest table heard. Your original package is paid and honored. The upgraded flowers, the backdrop, and the extra bar service were added after the contract. If they want to keep those, the bill goes to Darren and Caitlin. I nodded. Let the supper go on, I said. Frank's friends did not come here to watch me punish guests who had done nothing wrong. The meal continued, quiet at first, then warmer. Frank's old friend Pete gave the toast, and he did not mention Caitlin or Marlene. He talked about Frank carrying chairs, fixing the flag bracket, and always saving me the seat closest to the coffee because he knew I liked to refill cups before sitting down. Later, in the parking lot, Darren came to me with his coat unbuttoned and his face worn out. Mom, I am sorry, he said. I should have said something. I looked at my son under the Veterans Hall porch light. Respect has to show up before the room gets quiet, Darren. Not after. He nodded, but I did not soften it for him. I told him future family events would go through me in writing. No seating changes, no program changes, no payments, no memorial wording unless I approve them myself. Caitlin never apologized. She did stop handling receipts, keys, programs, and arrangements because I made sure she no longer had access to them. Darren still visits, but he knocks now, and he listens better than he used to. The next spring, I held Frank's supper again. Nadine helped with the programs, Ray kept the binder at the office, and my chair card stayed where it belonged. I sat beside Frank's photograph, not because I needed a title, but because love and history should not be erased for someone else's convenience. These days, I keep that yellow receipt folded inside a small envelope in Frank's old Bible next to his VFW pin. I do not keep it for revenge. I keep it to remember that my place is not up for grabs. Most mornings, I drink coffee on my porch while the sun comes up over Mason City. The air is quiet, my hands are steady, and when I sit down, I do not ask anyone whether the chair is mine. If this story stayed with you, stay with this channel for more stories about dignity, family, and starting over.